What would you do if your company paid for your training, watched you deliver record-breaking results, then refused to promote you? Would you stay loyal? Or would you use those new skills to walk out and triple your salary? My name is Ethan. I'm 34 years old, and 3 years ago, I made a decision that changed my entire life. I went from barely scraping by on a defense contractor salary to making more money than my own boss, working for his biggest competitor. This is the story of how I spent 100 days away from my family, generated $1.6 million in sales, earned my company a patent, became a Department of Defense finalist for technical excellence, and got rewarded with a 3% raise, and how I used their own training budget to engineer the perfect exit. When I was 27 years old, I landed what I thought was my dream job: systems engineer at Davidson Defense Solutions, one of the mid-tier defense contractors working on military communications equipment. It wasn't Lockheed or Raytheon, but it was stable, respectable, and had benefits. I was young, hungry, and determined to prove myself. I had a bachelor's in electrical engineering from a state school, student loans that felt like a mortgage, and a wife, Sarah, who just found out she was pregnant with our first child. The job paid $68,000 a year. Not bad for someone straight out of college, but not great for someone about to become a father in an expensive city like San Diego. But I believed in the system. Work hard, deliver results, get promoted. That's how it works, right? For the first 4 years, I did everything right. I arrived early, stayed late, volunteered for extra projects, learned everything I could about our systems. I watched senior engineers closely, absorbing their knowledge. I made myself indispensable. And every year, I got my performance review. Meets expectations, sometimes exceeds expectations. And every year, I got my raise. 2.5%, maybe 3% if it was a good year, maybe 4% if I was lucky. 4 years, 4 raises. My salary went from $68,000 to about $75,000. Meanwhile, my daughter was born, then my son. Sarah worked part-time as a dental hygienist, but childcare was expensive. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment that was too small. We drove used cars that broke down constantly. We had no savings. I was doing everything right, but we were treading water. In my 5th year, my manager, a guy named Richard who'd been with the company for 23 years, called me into his office. "Ethan, you've been doing solid work, consistent, reliable." "Thank you," I said, waiting for the other shoe to drop. "We're starting a new product line, advanced tactical communication systems for the Air Force. It's a big deal. We need a project engineer to lead the technical team." My heart rate picked up. "You're offering me the position?" "Not quite. Think of this as a trial run. Lead the team for a year, deliver results, and we'll talk about making it permanent, with a title bump and salary adjustment, of course." Of course. Always of course with these people. "What's the team?" 4 engineers, Mike, David, Jennifer, and Tom, plus Christina on design and 2 admins for documentation and coordination. 7 people total. You'll report directly to me. This was it. My shot at the management track, the path to real money, real advancement. "I'm in," I said without hesitation. "Good. We start Monday. Don't let me down." I didn't plan to. What followed was the hardest year of my professional life. The project was more complex than anyone anticipated. We were designing a modular communication system that could integrate with existing military infrastructure while adding new capabilities. It required hardware design, software integration, field testing, and coordination with multiple Air Force bases across the country. I threw myself into it completely. I worked 60-hour weeks minimum, sometimes 80. I traveled constantly to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, to Nellis in Nevada, to Eglin in Florida. I went to vendor facilities in Texas and Washington. I attended trade shows, technical conferences, customer meetings. In that first year, I spent 100 days away from home. 100 days I missed putting my kids to bed. 100 days Sarah handled everything alone. But we were delivering. My team was phenomenal. Mike had expertise in radio frequency systems, David was a software genius, Jennifer understood military requirements better than anyone. Tom could troubleshoot hardware faster than our test equipment. We worked our asses off. Late nights in the lab, weekend testing sessions, emergency redesigns when field tests revealed problems. And it paid off. By month 11, we had a working prototype that exceeded the Air Force's requirements. By month 12, we had our first customer, an Air Force base in Germany that ordered 15 units at $106,000 each, $1.59 million in first-year sales. The company's patent attorneys helped us file for a patent on our modular architecture. It was approved. Then came the big one. We were nominated by the United States Air Force for the Department of Defense Contractor Technical Team of the Year award. Out of hundreds of teams across dozens of companies, we were selected as finalists. In March, my entire team, all 7 of us, were flown to Washington, D.C. for the awards ceremony. Black tie event, Pentagon officials, defense industry executives, the works. We didn't win, but being a finalist was huge. It put Davidson Defense Solutions on the map. It proved we could compete with the big players. I was exhausted but proud. I'd proven myself. I delivered impossible results. I'd earned my promotion, right? April rolled around. Performance review season. I walked into Richard's office confident. I had my accomplishments listed out in my head. $1.6 million in revenue. Patent secured. DoD finalist. Team leadership. 100 days of travel. Richard smiled as I sat down. Ethan, let's talk about your year. He opened my review packet. I could see the ratings grid from across the desk. Teamwork, 10 out of 10. Technical expertise, 10 out of 10. Leadership, 10 out of 10. Initiative, 10 out of 10. Overall, 10 out of 10. Perfect scores across the board. Ethan, this was an exceptional year. Your team's performance was outstanding. The sales, the patent, the DoD nomination, it's exactly what we needed. Well done. Thank you, I said, trying to stay humble. So, about the permanent project engineer position? We're definitely moving forward with that. The paperwork's being processed. Should be official in a few weeks. And the salary adjustment? He slid a piece of paper across the desk. My new salary, $77,250. A 3% raise. Same as every other year. I stared at the number. Richard, I led a team that generated $1.6 million in sales. We got a patent. We were DoD finalists. And I get 3%? Ethan, I fought for you. HR has salary bands based on years of experience and position level. Until your project engineer title is official, you're still classified as a senior systems engineer. The 3% is the max for that band. When will the title be official? End of fiscal year, September. And the salary bump that comes with that? We'll revisit it then. Could be another 8–10% if the budget allows. I did the math in my head. Another 6 months of waiting. Maybe another $6,000 per year. Richard, I spent 100 days away from my family this year. And it's appreciated, Ethan. It really is. I walked out of that office numb, but I told myself to be patient. September. Just wait until September. 2 weeks later, I found out that Tom, one of my engineers, who reported to a different manager for administrative reasons, had been promoted to Senior Engineer 2. Not in September, immediately, with a salary bump to $82,000. Tom was great. I liked him personally. He'd done solid work on our project. But he hadn't led the team, he hadn't traveled 100 days, he hadn't managed the customer relationships or the DoD nomination process. He'd done his job well, I'd done something extraordinary, and he got promoted first. I requested a meeting with Richard immediately. "What's this about?" he asked when I closed his office door. "Tom got promoted." "Yes, that came through this week. His manager really pushed for it." "His manager? But you're my manager. Why didn't you push for me?" Richard leaned back in his chair. "Ethan, honestly, I don't think Tom deserved that promotion. He's good, but not that good. But he's not my employee, so I can't control what his manager does. So let me get this straight. You think I deserve a promotion more than Tom, but you didn't fight for it? And now I have to wait until September and hope the budget allows for it? Look, work hard this year too. Deliver another strong performance. Next review cycle, we'll make it happen. That was it. That was my breaking point. I'd worked myself to exhaustion, delivered record results, earned the highest possible performance rating, and my reward was try hard again next year. Fuck that! I didn't rage quit. I didn't make a scene. I just stopped caring. I started working exactly 40 hours per week, not a minute more. When 5 p.m. hit, I closed my laptop and went home. Didn't matter if we were mid-discussion or mid-problem. That was someone else's problem after 5 p.m. Travel requests? Sorry, family commitment. Customer meeting on Friday? I'm taking PTO. Evening conference call with the German team? That's outside my work hours. I stopped volunteering for anything, stopped staying late, stopped bringing work home. And you know what? My mental health immediately improved. I was home for dinner every night. I saw my kids. Sarah and I actually had time to talk about something other than logistics. I started using every single benefit the company offered. Took all my vacation days, every last hour. Took sick days when I needed them. Hell, I took sick days when I didn't need them. I'd earned them. They were mine. The company had an education budget that barely anyone used. $8,000 per year for professional development. Most engineers didn't bother because they were too busy working. Not me. I started looking at what training was available. Tom, who I genuinely still liked despite the promotion situation, had started taking MBA evening classes that the company reimbursed. But those came with a 2-year commitment clause. Stay with the company for 2 years after completing the degree or pay back the tuition. No, thank you. But the company also offered software training, CAD systems, finite element analysis, FEA, advanced 3D modeling, with no such restrictions, just pure skill building. I signed up for everything. FEA certification course, 5 days in Phoenix. Advanced CADIA training, 4 days in Seattle. Computational fluid dynamics, 3 days in Boston. Tom was doing the same thing. We traveled together, took the courses side by side, built our skills. The company paid for all of it. Hotels, flights, meals, course fees. They were thrilled to see us investing in our professional development. What they didn't realize was that I was building my exit strategy.
6 months after that devastating performance review, I started applying for jobs. Quietly, selectively. I targeted positions that specifically required the skills I just acquired: FEA expertise, advanced CAD, aerospace or defense experience, project leadership. I tailored my resume to highlight the training I'd just completed, on Davidson's dime. Within 3 weeks, I had 4 interviews lined up: 2 with aerospace companies, 1 with a medical device manufacturer, and 1 with Stellaris Systems, one of Davidson's direct competitors. The Stellaris interview was interesting. They knew exactly who Davidson was, knew our product line, and were impressed by my DoD finalist achievement. "We've been trying to break into the tactical communications market," the hiring manager said. "Someone with your experience could lead that effort." "What's the position?" "Senior project engineer. You'd manage a team of 6 initially, with room to grow. Base salary $150,000, plus overtime eligible, full benefits, and annual bonus potential." I nearly fell out of my chair. $150,000? That was more than double my current salary. And overtime eligible? At Davidson, engineers didn't get overtime. We were salaried and worked whatever hours were necessary. "When can you start?" they asked. "I need to give 2 weeks' notice." "Of course." I got the offer letter 3 days later. I read it 5 times to make sure it was real. $150,000 base. Overtime at time and a half over 40 hours. $10,000 sign-on bonus. 4 weeks vacation. I showed Sarah that night after the kids were in bed. She cried, happy tears. "This is real?" she whispered. "It's real." We can finally save money. We can move to a bigger place. We can... I know. I held her. I know. The next morning, I submitted my resignation letter.
Richard called me into his office within an hour of receiving my resignation email. "Ethan, what is this?" "It's my 2 weeks' notice. I'm leaving the company." "Why? What happened? Did I do something?" "Nothing happened. I got a better offer." "From who?" "I'd rather not say." It was Stellaris, but I wasn't about to tell him that. "Ethan, this doesn't make sense. We just invested thousands of dollars sending you to FEA training, to CATIA courses, to..." He stopped, realization dawning on his face. "You planned this. You took the training knowing you were leaving." "I took the training to improve my skills. What I did with those skills afterward was my choice." That's incredibly disloyal. We trusted you. We invested in you. You paid me 3% raises for 5 years. You watched me generate $1.6 million in sales and gave me the same raise as someone who just showed up and did their job. You promoted someone else before me, even though you said I deserved it more. So let's not talk about loyalty, Richard." His face reddened. "How much are they paying you?" "More than I make here." "Give me a number. Maybe we can match it." I considered lying, but decided the truth would sting more. $150,000 base, plus overtime. The color drained from his face. That's more than I make." "I know." "Ethan, be reasonable. You're throwing away your career here. You're burning bridges." "I'm taking a better opportunity." "That's not burning bridges. That's career growth." "What about your team? What about the projects you're leading?" "You'll figure it out. You always do." I walked out of his office and spent my last 2 weeks documenting everything, training my replacement, and tying up loose ends. I was professional, cordial, but done. On my last day, Tom caught me in the parking lot. "So, you're really leaving?" "Yeah, time for a change." "Can't say I blame you. You got screwed on that promotion." "Thanks for saying that." "Where are you going?" I smiled. "Stellaris." His eyes widened. "Damn, Ethan, that's cold." "That's business, Tom. Good luck with the MBA." "Good luck with everything." I drove away from Davidson Defense Solutions for the last time, watching it shrink in my rearview mirror, and felt nothing but relief. Stellaris Systems was everything Davidson wasn't. From day one, I was treated like a valuable asset. My opinions mattered in meetings. My ideas were implemented. My time was respected. If I worked over 40 hours, I got paid for it. That first year, with overtime, I made $195,000, almost 3 times what I'd been making at Davidson. Sarah and I bought a house. Not a huge house, but a real house with a yard where our kids could play. We paid off our credit cards, started college funds for the kids, went on our first real vacation in years. But the money wasn't even the best part. The best part was being valued. When I delivered strong results, I got immediate recognition. When I had a family commitment, nobody questioned it. When I proposed a new project direction, people listened. I led the development of Stellaris' tactical communication system, which ended up competing directly with the system I'd built at Davidson. Within 18 months, we had $4.2 million in sales, better than what I'd done at Davidson, with a better team and better support. And the sweetest irony? About 6 months after I left Davidson, I heard through the industry grapevine that they'd lost their biggest Air Force contract renewal. The contract went to Stellaris instead. I'd like to say I felt bad about it, but I didn't. Not even a little. I'm 34 now, 3 years removed from that decision to walk out of Davidson Defense Solutions with nothing but 2 weeks' notice and a job offer from their competitor. People ask me sometimes if I feel guilty, if I think I betrayed Davidson by taking their training and leaving, if I burned a bridge I'll regret burning. The answer is no. Here's what I learned. Loyalty is a two-way street. Companies love to talk about loyalty when it benefits them. They want you to work nights and weekends. They want you to sacrifice time with your family. They want you to pour your heart and soul into their projects and their profits. But when it comes time to reward that loyalty, when it comes time to actually compensate you for the value you create, suddenly it's budget constraints and salary bands and try hard again next year. I gave Davidson 5 years. I gave them record sales.
I gave them patents. I gave them a DoD finalist trophy. I gave them 100 days away from my family. They gave me 3% raises and empty promises. So no, I don't feel guilty. I used the training they offered, training that was part of my compensation package, training I'd earned to better my skills. And then I used those skills to take a job that actually valued me. That's not betrayal, that's capitalism. That's the free market they claim to love so much. If Davidson had wanted to keep me, they could have. They could have promoted me when I earned it. They could have paid me what I was worth. They could have shown me that loyalty goes both ways. They chose not to, so I chose to leave. And my life is immeasurably better because of it. If you're reading this and you're in a similar situation, working hard, delivering results, getting nothing in return, here's my advice. Stop being loyal to a company that isn't loyal to you. Companies aren't families, they're businesses. And if they're not treating you right, find someone who will. Use every benefit they offer. Take the training. Take the education reimbursement. Build your skills on their dime, and then use those skills to get what you deserve. Document everything you accomplish. Quantify your impact. Track the revenue you generate, the costs you save, the problems you solve. You'll need that for your resume. And when the time comes, when you've proven your worth and they still won't reward it, walk away. Don't rage quit. Don't burn bridges unnecessarily. Just quietly, professionally, find something better and leave. The best revenge isn't confrontation. It's success. It's walking out making more than your boss while they scramble to replace you. It's watching your old company lose contracts to your new company. It's going home every night to your family, knowing you're valued, knowing you're paid what you're worth, knowing you made the right call. 3 years ago, I was barely scraping by on $75,000 a year, working myself to exhaustion for a company that saw me as replaceable. Today, I make nearly $200,000 a year. I'm home for dinner every night, and I work for a company that actually appreciates what I bring to the table. That's not betrayal, that's growth. That's taking control of your own career instead of waiting for someone else to hand you what you've earned. And if Richard from Davidson is watching this somehow, thanks for the training. It really paid off. Just not for you.